nervous. I'm kidding.
Okay. So I probably shouldn't take forever. So
What do you need me to help with?
just like videotape it probably.
Videotape her?
Yeah. You don't need to videotape me.
Okay, so do you want... So you let me know when I should start it, okay?
Okay.
I might like...
So just, are you ready?
Yeah, whenever you are.
Okay, so you can start now.
Okay, is it this one? Or this one?
Um,
The red? Oh, I think it started already.
whatever.
Can
You'll
you
be
edit?
editing this out.
Yeah, okay, fine, I can trim it later.
Okay.
So, what was your job with supporting the figure skaters throughout the games in 2010?
Ooh, in 2010. So in 2010, I actually was assigned to Whistler Village. So that was the mountain village, which means I saw no figure skaters. So they actually were all in the city in Vancouver. And so there was a different set of staff that supported that actual sport during the games. The sports that I supported were like the sliding sports, like bobsled and skeleton and skiing and that sort of a thing. So unfortunately, I didn't have much interaction with them in 2010.
Okay. So, so you were like the housing manager at the games.
Mm-hmm.
So do all the athletes get the same accommodations?
You know, they're pretty darn close. So in 2010, all the rooms were pretty much identical. And it was an interesting housing setup because we had like 4 to 6 people that would share a bathroom. And so I know you're focused on figure skating, but so for example, like biathlon, you know, they're really concerned about getting sick and about staying healthy. And so shared bathrooms were something that were a big concern to them. And so just working with them to try to kind of, you know, trim their fears back a little bit and encourage them that, you know, things would be okay. But I know in Vancouver, the figure skaters had very nice accommodations, much different than what was in Whistler. So,
So the ones that were sharing the bathrooms, were they like on the same team, or were they just like random like people that they haven't met?
So that's one of the things that we did is we reassigned housing a little bit so that like all of the biathletes would at least be together rather than having, you know, like a random skeleton athlete in with a biathlete. So
Okay.
yep, try to keep the sports together.
So what were the accommodations like in the rooms? Like, of course it came with like a bed, but like,
Yeah,
was it just that?
pretty
Or-
basic. I'm thinking back, I think there was a bed and then there was like a wardrobe where you could hang your clothes and that sort of a thing. No dressers or anything. I think just a small nightstand with a lamp, and then the beds were single beds. And the rooms were really big. There just wasn't a whole lot in them. And so one of the things that the U.S. team received in both villages was from elementary schools and I think maybe some middle schools, but mainly elementary schools throughout the U.S. and Canada. They made pictures and good luck messages, and then that came to our village, and so they from there, like the athletes could pick which ones they liked or which ones apply to their sport, and so it was really cool to see a plain room with hardly anything in it be completely decorated, like kind of wall to wall with a bunch of like Go Team USA stuff. So that was pretty neat.
So what is the whole like eating situation with the athletes? Is there
in
like
the village?
Is there like a schedule, or do they just come whenever they want?
So the dining hall in the village is pretty much full access. They may have certain times for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but it's very open, and athletes can come and go as they please. Each village tries to accommodate different like cultures of food. So you may have an Asian station, you may have an Italian station, and then there's always kind of authentic food to that country that is the host. And then in a lot of the villages, there's also McDonald's. So McDonald's being a sponsor of the Olympic Games, they usually set up like a cafe inside the dining hall, which seems bizarre because athletes, I'm sure, are trying to eat healthy for games, but end up, you know, grabbing a McFlurry or something like that from McDonald's.
They
from
can
time to time.
splurge when they're done.
That's right, exactly. It's a good time for that then.
So how much, about how much money is spent on each like athlete in housing, like with like the room and like the food and whatever else?
That's a great question. That's probably not one that I actually know. I'm sure like a Julie Miller in Sport Performance may know, but no, I know that the U.S. delegation in our international games department will like pay for a block of rooms, and so each room costs a set number of dollars, and then and we're allocated a certain amount from the organizing committee. But if we have a larger delegation than what's allocated to us, then we're going to buy up more rooms if possible. So there definitely is a cost associated with it, though I'm not sure the dollar amount. I know it probably changes per games, like depending on location.
Okay. So how are like rooms assigned? Is it, so of course like US athletes are with other US athletes, but is it like by sport or by, like, how does it work?
So the buildings themselves, if we can get a whole building of US athletes together, that's always an advantage. But sometimes, because the US delegation is so large, we usually end up taking up like a building and a half, or sometimes 2 buildings. And so in Whistler specifically, we had like 3/4 of one building. And so the US staff works closely with the organizing committee, so worked closely with VANOC to come up with who was going to be kind of our roommates within that building. And so it had to be someone we're friendly with, meaning for winter sports, like we didn't want to be housed with Canada or with Russia, like people that we're very competitive with in the winter sports. So we were actually housed with Australia in our building. So within a building there could be multiple countries, and then within the housing blocks themselves, we try to keep teams all in certain wings or on certain floors together. So if they are split up among 2 floors, we try to evenly split them, so at least half the team is on one floor and half the team's on another. But definitely housed like by floor when possible.
Okay. So do, like, if they share a building, do the people from other countries, do they like get along good, or?
Typically the US does a good job of making sure that the country that is housed with them is one that we're friendly with. So but yeah, and you'll see a lot of other athletes coming in from different countries, just kind of checking things out and seeing, who's in what building. So I would say pretty friendly during the games among all the countries.
So do they like try to communicate if they speak different languages?
Thankfully, I think a lot of the athletes at least speak English, but I haven't seen if there's been an instance where they don't, and how that goes. But I'm guessing if it's anything like the training center here, it's a lot of hand gestures and a lot of pointing and that sort of thing.
Okay, so from 2010, what have you done since?
Sure. So after Whistler, then I actually was not assigned to London. I was on maternity leave, so I didn't get to go to those games. But then did get to attend the games in Sochi. So was actually in the coastal cluster, or the city, and so worked with ice hockey and curling and figure skating and speed skating, and did the same thing. Was a housing manager for those games as well.
So what do you do now?
So now I'm an associate director here at the Olympic Training Center, and I oversee the operations department as well as the transportation departments. And so transportation is really just picking up and dropping off the athletes as they come into town, and scheduling their arrivals and departures with the transportation staff here. And then operations is a whole slew of things, but really overseeing the staff and the budgets and kind of the day-to-day operations. Work really closely with Sport Performance on the funding of athletes, like so what athletes have to pay to come here and what ones don't. So yeah, kind of keeps me busy.
Okay, so is there any other like little tidbits that you want to share?
Oh, interesting. Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Do you have like a good story or anything from Whistler?
A good story from Whistler. Well, besides getting to work with Julie, who was 6 months pregnant.
Well, that was Sochi.
Which was that's true. Whistler.
Whistler.
It's hard to think back to that. I don't know. It was my first time in a village, and so Whistler was my first time in a village, and so to me, having been like offsite at high performance training centers before, where it was just the U.S. team, this was a new opportunity for me to see for the first time kind of all the countries coming together, which I thought was amazing. So when you go into the dining hall and you see all these countries in their team uniforms or team jackets, and some sitting with each other because they know each other from, traveling to world championships or other competitions throughout the year, it was so neat. And just I think one of the days they had, it was the day of opening ceremony, and so all the teams were kind of walking to the same point of the buses to take them down to the city. And seeing all of them in their opening ceremony uniforms, and just the pride that they all had for their own country at that time, it was a pretty cool sight to see.
Cool. So that's all I have for you today. So.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Is that it?
Okay.
Okay.